When it became apparent that Hurricane Irma was going to come our way, Shell Point management made the decision to evacuate to the on-site shelter. With this decision made, employees jumped into action, executing the carefully prepared plans. Additional food was brought in to add to the cache already stored in the shelter. Pallets of water were brought in, and many porta potties were put in place. Hurricane kits were picked up and delivered to the shelter.
It was very concise and precise, and it worked exactly on time. We passed the word to everybody in the building, and we all took our chairs and our hurricane kits down to the appointed place.
A crew started preparing by closing and bolting down most of the steel window shutters. Residents of the pavilion and King's Crown were first to be moved into the arbor. This went so smoothly and ahead of schedule that the rest of the evacuation was moved up several hours.
I was here for Charlie. I know this is going to be worse, but it wasn't bad at all up there in the place we went for Charlie.
I'm praising and thanking the Lord that I'm at Shell Point and they have the provisions for the hurricane shelter, and my daughters, 3 daughters, are so grateful that I'm here and being taken care of 100%.
Of course, it's bigger now and there's more fans, so it'll be better than it was before.
I thought the idea of a pajama party was a good one. And I thought we should all come in our best jammies and be ready to go.
Well, we were very thankful for the provision of the shelter right here and the opportunity to be here with family and friends who care and are concerned for one another. And so we were happy to come to the shelter.
Buses, vans, cars, and golf carts were pressed into duty to move independent living residents from their homes to the waiting safety of the shelter.
You can't go all the way across, and then other people will have to go.
At the time we were told the bus was going to arrive, it was there, and we got over and made it to the storm shelter, and they showed us to where we were going to sit and stay, and everything worked perfectly. The timing was perfect.
Once in the shelter, residents settled into areas organized by their buildings.
Well, I was impressed at the preparation, the logistics of it all.
I think it's kind of fun to get to know your neighbors. It's one way of doing it.
That's true.
As Elva suggested would happen, it was indeed a great opportunity to get to know your neighbors better and to make new friends.
We got acquainted with a lot of people that we didn't know.
Very great time for socializing, getting together.
It was kind of like a grown-up version of summer camp. There was lots of time for long conversations.
Man, sometimes you gotta stop working.
Yeah, I know.
One group of animal-loving staff and resident volunteers greeted the pets of Shell Point to the pet shelter, which was set up at the storage area in the second-floor parking garage of Lakewood.
Oh, things are going great. I've got a lot of volunteers. The dogs are really happy. Can you hear them? We're just having a regular dog party in here in the shelter.
The last count I heard, it was around 85. Dogs are way ahead. Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
The kitties are good. We've got them in a separate section, so they're in the quiet zone. We've got a couple of rowdy ones that are a little more boisterous.
The pups got walked, and all received food, attention, and love from the pet crew. It got a bit noisy at times, but all of the fur babies stayed perfectly safe. As everyone waited for the storm to arrive, residents found ways to pass the time. One popular activity was reading.
It's a spy movie. A spy book.
It's called Accidental Tourist. It's an oldie by Ann Tyler, and I love it.
It's an adventure of a young man who was in racing. He was lost at sea.
How many books did you bring with you?
About 15.
But I have about 1,000 in my nook, so I can go on. I'm all set.
Yeah. We went to Ireland about 2.5 weeks ago, and because I was looking for some background, I'd never been to Ireland, I looked up an author that might have something about Ireland. All those things that we saw as tourists there, I'm now reading about, and the mystery, it's a murder mystery that I'm reading.
This is Shel Silverstein's poems, and they're always things that are fun to read when I can't think of anything else. This is one I just finished it, and this is another one.
I am very relaxed, and I think you guys are doing a wonderful, wonderful job.
Card games were popular with some. After all the flurry of preparation, others just wanted to take a nap. As the hours dragged on, one group of residents offered up some musical encouragement. And then there was this one roving minstrel who tried to lighten the mood.
How many days will we be in this place before we sleep in our own beds? Answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
A few of the windows were left open as long as possible for a bit of ventilation. But when the worst of the storm drew close, it was time to batten down the last of the shutters and bolt the doors closed. We didn't know exactly how direct or how bad the hit was going to be, but we knew we were all perfectly safe. And that is a wonderful feeling when a hurricane is bearing down.
Hello, here we all are inside the parking shelter. And aren't we glad that we live at Shell Point and didn't have to wait 6 hours in line, and they have water and food for us.
Exactly how long a shelter experience is going to last depends on a lot of variables. When the shelter was used during Hurricane Charlie, it all lasted about 8 hours. Irma was different. The entire episode was closer to 2.5 days. This meant sleeping on hurricane chairs, quite a few meals, and the inevitable visits to the porta potties. Each of these things meant a change of routine for everyone involved, and challenges did arise. Staff and residents worked together to meet needs, to help each other through, and to make it all as comfortable as possible under the circumstances. Some employees took advantage of the offer to bring their families to the shelter, so some kids got to experience the adventure along with the rest of us. It was warm in the shelter, but the fans were a big help. When problems arose, the staff did their best to take care of them.
These are all on.
The Shell Point Food Service team did an outstanding job of keeping everyone's tummies full. Along with the expected energy bars, tuna fish, crackers, and such like easily stored items, they managed to provide loads of fresh bananas.
Morning. Hello.
And the call to hydrate, hydrate rang throughout the shelter.
I am giving water, ice, and all kinds of Powerade. I'm just having a blast.
Yeah, so obviously we're figuring out a lot of this as we go because it's just rather complicated at times, but we're trying to get more strategy to our food delivery. We're really working the room in a U, going around court by court, delivering each meal item in sequence. And we just had a big meeting with the court reps to help them control the flow of their residents up to the food area. So far, so good. We've served today, we had a breakfast and lunch already, probably 1,500, 1,700 meals. Going into dinner now, about 5:30. We've got about a half an hour or so, and we're going to do it all again tomorrow. So learning minute by minute.
The staff was fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic.
Really took care of us. They come by with water and ice packs and food and
cold washcloths.
I couldn't believe it. On the second day they had roast beef and ham sandwiches for lunch. Boy, that's great.
I want to compliment them, especially the food. I realize you're limited to what you can provide, but that lunch on Sunday was top shelf. I couldn't believe the cold cuts, the roast beef and the ham. Those were as good as you get at any deli. So my compliments on the deli food. It was excellent, and everything else sustained us. We're still here.
So can I order a T-bone steak, medium rare?
Absolutely. Your number's 99. You'll hear it over the loudspeaker.
There was plenty to eat and drink for everyone. Nobody worked harder than our medical team, both at the Arbor and in the shelter, taking care of folks day and night.
I've never seen such care in all my life. And in the shelter, nothing was like that shelter, the care we got over there. It was fabulous. And those nurses were up around the clock, 3 of them, 3 registered nurses. And Martin Schappell was running around. They all had on their shorts, and it was just wonderful.
And I can't say enough for the nurses and the doctors and the little Joy that runs the pharmacy. She was just going like a machine all that time, wouldn't sit still, day and night, and it's just amazing.
Cell phones were charged at makeshift charging stations, and we all tried to let our far-off friends and relatives know what was happening.
There were power strips up and down the wall, and we were able to charge our phones in.
Cell service was spotty for some of us, and eventually most were completely cut off for the worst part of the storm. Those who had radios listened for news reports. As the storm ramped up, residents lined up for a peek through the few small windows that provided some limited view of what was going on outside. We got the SBTV camera into Paul Yakovich's office, where the internet provided a view of the weather map until the eye was hitting Naples. Then it went out. It's an ominous thing to see a hurricane's eye headed right toward you, and to realize that the storm was bigger than the entire state of Florida. We also got to check out the boats in the marina, which fared very well through the winds. The shade sails at the aquatic center were said to be hurricane-proof. Well, it turned out that they did indeed survive after quite a thrashing.
Well, I was impressed at the preparation, the logistics of it all, and how even our leaders and all were there taking care of us all night long. It just amazed me.
Throughout the Irma experience, management held meetings with the court reps, who then passed the word to their neighbors about what was happening and what the plans were.
Once we get our plan in place for evacuating our evacuation shelter, and so we'll do this probably again in the morning after we've done our inspection. So the highlights are great news. We're going to get 6 to 8, 6 to 10. The highlight's going to be when you see the screens going up for some fresh air. We got quiet time tonight from 10 to 5. Our crews are going out first thing at the break of dawn to do our inspections. We're going to come back with a plan and go from there in terms of getting you guys as comfortable in your homes as we can. Thank you, thank you, thank you for how helpful and cooperative you have been.
Seeing the leadership with our president, Martin Schappell, and the staff working together, all the little details.
I've been down here 31 years, so I've lived through hurricanes before, but this was my first at Shell Point. And they could not have done anything any better. It was amazing. Even the little bags of ice that came around, and Randy, our choir director, you know, moving all night long.
I was just amazed at what everyone did in a difficult situation.
Way above and beyond what I was expecting. Everybody at the 100% level knew what they were doing and was very caring and would do anything for you. I was very impressed with the staff.
Well, it wasn't the Ritz, but we were well taken care of, had everything we needed, and they did everything they could to help us.
It was just an amazing thing to watch, and we were all safe.
I'm very grateful to all the volunteers and all the employees. It's amazing, amazing. I have been through a lot in my life, but this is 5-star.
Late Saturday night, the worst was upon us. But due to a last-minute turn to the east and some shredding and disorganization of the eye just before it got to us, the winds were significantly less than anticipated. That was a great relief. With the storm heading away, most folks collapsed into sleep for at least a few hours. As the sun came up after Irma's passing during the night, the big door was opened. As often happens right after a hurricane, it was a beautiful day with blue skies. Shell Point crews were out at first light, taking stock of the damage and checking buildings to see if they were safe for residents to return home.
All right, here we go. Good condition. Look at this, it's dry here.
Great. As was the case all over Southwest Florida, trees were down all over the property, hundreds of them. Sadly, we lost 5 very old Cuban laurel trees around the island pond and 2 more in the park. The tree next to the shuffleboard courts fell right on top of the sports equipment shed. At first glance, it looked like the little structure was smashed, but on closer inspection, it turned out that one large branch fell on one side, another on the other side, and a third ended up just over the top of the roof. The little building was caged in by huge tree limbs, but appeared to suffer little damage. Indeed, once the tree was cut away, the shed was in remarkably good condition, and certainly repairable to serve for many more years to come.
It's all the survivors. We've all survived. Yay!
As buildings were cleared one by one, the residents of those buildings were called to board buses and head on home.
Back when you could stay longer.
Some folks just couldn't get enough of that great shelter food and grabbed one last meal. The process of moving residents out of the Arbor shelter went as quickly and as smoothly as going in had been, due to a very well thought out system. It would be some time before power was restored and things would slowly return to normal, but everyone had had enough of the shelter for a while, and it's always good to return home. The expected storm surge, which could have been the most devastating thing of all, ended up being only a very high tide event. The docks went underwater and a few homes were perilously close to flooding, but the worst did not happen this time. There were a few temporary ponds formed where we don't normally see them. The large one covering the driving range was appreciated by hundreds of birds who dropped in. It seemed like a minor miracle, but the butterfly bed and breakfast came through just fine. Most of our vehicles were fine, with a few exceptions. This Lincoln happened to be in just the wrong parking spot, and the wind got the better of this golf cart. While most of the boats in the marina escaped without a scratch, the same cannot be said for one rack full of kayaks. They're pretty tough, but not that tough. Except for a few downed trees, the estuary miraculously looked like it was ready to have some sales photos made. When it was all over, we asked some residents to sum up their experience.
It was a different experience, but it was a great experience. And the group was well organized. They have to be complimented. Very good.
It was absolutely terrific. I mean, the way it was put together, it was such a smooth transition that we couldn't believe it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It was wonderful. We didn't even know there was a storm outside. It was so comfortable.
Nice.
Well, I don't know about comfortable, but we certainly felt safe.
Well managed. It was like herding thousands of cats.
I mean, to take care of 1,000 people with food and water and get us here efficiently, get us home. We got our luggage back and our chair back way sooner than I expected. But the employees were fantastic, just fantastic.
Everybody's been helping everybody. It's been wonderful. But we especially appreciate what Shell Point is doing for us with the extra water and coming around making sure that everybody was okay, with the food that they're supplying us with. And we couldn't imagine anybody taking better care.
They did a wonderful job taking care of us and making sure we had everything we needed, and we did.
First hurricane. We've been here 2 weeks after selling our house in North Carolina. We just thought it was a wonderful experience. We give Shell Point a 5-star on everything that they did. They were so organized and it was just wonderful how they treated us.
I don't think under the circumstances it could have been any better.
The whole storm, it was an excellent experience, very easy, and it was just very, contented, how would you say.
We lost an awful lot of trees, and there was a bit of roof damage here and there. But to our great relief, our building suffered very little structural damage. Some water did get in to where we would rather it had not, and that was no fun. The employee cafeteria had 6 inches in it and could not be used for several weeks. And some windows failed to keep the rain out. But not one roof was blown off, and for that we are most grateful. We all heaved a collective sigh with the thought that it could have been so very much worse, as the poor folks in the Keys are well aware. Irma beat us up a bit, but all in all, Shell Point, its residents and staff fared very well.
This whole experience has been challenging and tests everyone's endurance, but the outcome is we're all stronger for it. And as the Shell Point safety manager, it's very, very hard to exercise the organization to this level in a drill. So I believe we're going to come through this in a magnificent way, and I think all of Shell Point's employees are going to have a lesson they'll remember. It'll be a day to remember, or days to remember, and we'll be much better off for having gone through it and be able to take these challenges in the future should they occur, because it's been a long time since we've been challenged. So again, I can't say enough for all of the workers here at Shell Point who have given beyond your imagination, and how many of the residents have stepped up to the plate to help their fellow residents to share, and the compassion is just beyond my understanding. And I just think the whole organization is just marvelous. And to live and work at Shell Point is a dream come true. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Have a great day.
After the storm, life goes on. We're thankful that the new day is bright and beautiful at Shell Point.